Welcome everyone. Give us a few moments to make sure that all families have been able to log in, and then we'll get started momentarily. Hi everybody, thank you for being patient as all families are given a chance to log in. We'll get started in just a few seconds. Thank you. Hi everybody, give us a few more moments to make sure that all families have been able to log in, and then we'll get started in a second.
Reggie, I don't know if you are trying to talk, but you're on mute.
Thanks, Beth. Hi everybody. My name is Ronaldo Lunagakit, and I want to welcome you to our third webinar in the 2021 Fall Family Webinar Series. I am the Assistant Director in the First Year Center, and tonight I am joined by my colleagues, Beth Doores, Associate Director for Campus Life, and James McClendon, Assistant Director of Campus Life. We will also hear from a few students involved in Sorority and Fraternity Life tonight. We are so excited that you've chosen to join us for tonight's conversation. Some information before we get started. First, we want to make sure you know how to submit questions during this webinar. If time allows, panelists will answer questions at the end of the webinar. You'll notice that we've given you the ability to ask questions via the Q&A feature. Our professional staff within the First Year Center are helping to field these questions. To make sure you know how to use the Q&A feature, please share some of the places you are watching from, and we'll name a few of them on air. While you do that, we will be showing a PowerPoint created by our panelists during tonight's webinar. However, if you prefer to download this PowerPoint and follow along on your own, please use the link that we just shared in the chat. As a note, in the chat feature, we will be sharing links and email addresses for the duration of the webinar. Third, this webinar is being recorded live. Next week, it will be uploaded to the families.woostall.edu website. In a moment, we will hear from our panelists about sorority and fraternity life here on campus. If something they say sparks a question, don't forget to send it to us using the Q&A feature. Before passing things along, I want to share some of the places people are joining us from tonight. We have families tuning in from New York City, Cooper City, Florida, Indianapolis, Indiana, and many other locations. Now, since I know you all want to hear more about the Sorority and Fraternity Life program here on campus, I will turn it over to Beth and James.
Thank you so much, Reggie, and thank you so much, families, for joining us this evening to talk a little bit more about our Sorority and Fraternity Life community. As I am coming from my home in Creve Coeur, Missouri, I have 2 kids under 6 and a beautiful dog, Ginger, who may be joining us in random times. So I will either apologize in advance or celebrate the fact that they are very excited about the conversation that we are having. As Reggie mentioned before, my name is Beth Doores, and I serve as the Associate Director for Campus Life. A little bit more about me. I have been a member of Chi Omega Fraternity for the past 20 years. During this time, I've served in a variety of different capacities, such as a chapter advisor, house director, and experience managing sorority and fraternity life community at my previous institution and this institution. Additionally, my husband is a member of Delta Sigma Phi fraternity for the past 27 years. So dinner table conversations may look a little different than other folks' conversation as a result of my position and our experience in sorority fraternity life. In addition, I have my colleague, James McClendon, joining us today, who's going to go ahead and introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James McClendon. I serve as the Assistant Director of Campus Life, overseeing sorority fraternity life here at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm a member of Phi Kappa Psi fraternity. I have worked my entire professional career in fraternity sorority life thus far. serving as a campus-based professional, but I've also spent some time as a chapter advisor for my local chapter over at SIUE, just over on the other side of the river. My wife is also affiliated. She's a member of Alpha Phi, and she's also served as a chapter advisor for Alpha Phi. And so our experience as undergrads really led to us spending a lot of time just working and giving our time towards this space. So I'm very glad to be here and be able to talk to you all. Before we begin, though, I did, for later on, would like folks to share if they are affiliated. It's always fun to find that out. And so later on, when we get into our Q&A session, we would really love for folks to share that information with us, as we're always excited to know who the affiliated folks are in the room. And so, while it's nice to hear from us as the staff members who work in this space, we think it's really important for you to hear from folks who are going through the experience currently. And so we have a group of talented young leaders here with us tonight who are going to talk a little bit about their experience. And so each of them will share their name, their pronouns they identify with, 1 to 2 things outside of their chapter that they're involved with, and 1 benefit that they have experienced while being affiliated. So I will let them do that now.
Hi guys, I'm Ethan Glazar. I use he, him pronouns. Outside of Greek life, I am in the campus radio. I also shoot archery. And one benefit of joining Greek life is definitely the community. I meet a lot of people who are outside of my traditional bubble that I grew up with, and it's just been a great time getting to know everybody in the fraternity and across all of IFC.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asia Porter. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And 2 things that I do outside of Greek life. I'm in Mosaic Whispers, which is one of the a cappella groups here on campus. And I also work as an undergraduate research assistant within the sociology department. But for what I've gained from Greek life, to echo Ethan, the community has been amazing, but also the platform that my organization specifically gives me in order to do service and participate in social action within the St. Louis community has been really beneficial to me.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Lippman. I'm the president of Kappa Kappa Gamma. My pronouns are she, her, hers. In addition to being the president of Kappa and my affiliation with them, I'm a research assistant with the WashU School of Medicine, working in the psychiatry department for children who have early diagnoses and treatments of mental illnesses and disorders such as depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So it's been a super rewarding experience working outside in the med campus as well. Through my leadership position in the sorority, I've been able to grow a lot as a leader, in addition to the community it's given to me. So I've learned how to work really closely with other members in my community and work as a liaison between the university and also the national headquarters to build the chapter on our campus in alignment with the values that each of our members want to bring to the organization.
Thank you so much, Ethan, Asia, and Lindsay. We look forward to having some great conversations later on in the presentation and conversation. So during our conversation today, we're going to provide you with feedback around campus life, how sorority and fraternity life community shows up at WashU. And as you're talking with your students, topics we encourage you to have as they are exploring their choice to participate. Over the next hour, should you have any questions, as Reggie mentioned earlier, feel free to use the Q&A feature. And at the conclusion of our conversation, we'll be able to answer as many as we can. In addition, should you have problems seeing the slide deck, the First Year Center will be putting the slide deck in the chat. So if you, I will draw your attention to that so you can access the online platform as well for the presentation. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we will begin by sharing information about the department that supports sorority and fraternity life, campus life. Within campus life, our primary goal is to ensure our students are making communities for which they can create impact with. With over 400 student groups across 14 different categories, our students are becoming better people, building better communities, and we do this in 3 different unique ways: through programming, advising, and also resources. whether that is our Washington University group organizer that lists more about our student groups, which is called WUGO, if you will be hearing that, to supporting our 240 student group and chapter advisors to hosting programs such as Tuesday Tea every Tuesday at 3 p.m. in the Danforth University Center to celebrate your students' experience. But in order to better understand our campus life video beyond what you're seeing on the slide deck, we have a short video that explains a bit more about campus life and how sorority and fraternity life is positioned in our department. And we are unable to hear that. If we could get that audio in, that'd be amazing.
What's your campus life? Programs like student unions trending topics here. There's a beautiful need in them for community. Whether it's participating in one of our 210 programs,
And for those who were not able to hear the audio of it, our first year center has sent over the link. We would encourage you to look at it to learn a little bit more about our community and how we support that. So in order to talk about how this comes to light, I want to welcome Lindsay to the conversation to share her story on how campus life has been able to support her through her first term as chapter president. So Lindsay, if you want to talk a little bit about how campus life supports you in your role.
Yeah, absolutely. Campus life has been really fundamental in my ability to grow as a leader with Kappa. I have frequent meetings with James especially, but I've also met a lot with Beth as they advise me in my position to ensure that everything in the chapter is running smoothly. They've also supported and advised the organization to ensure we're creating a valuable, meaningful experience for not just our members, but also like within our position and role in our broader community. They offer advice on how to approach certain situations and areas of growth on our campus, and check in with other members of my chapter council, so the other leaders within the organization, to ensure that they all feel supported in what they're doing in their positions in this chapter. Overall, they just give us the guidelines and oversee our chapter operations and leadership to allow us to have a flourishing, growing community on campus.
Thank you, Lindsay. So if you are wanting additional information and additional stories about just how our students interact with our office, you can check out our 2021-2022 Campus Life Year in Review. That features stories. So we have Dan Baza and Sydney Otis, who are current student and former student, and they share stories about their experience and their perspective going through the community. So as you can see here, we have a number of people within Campus Life who are just helpful not only to the sorority fraternity experience, but to our students as a whole. And so you can see all of the folks there who students have the opportunity to process with and ask questions to and things of that nature.
So what is sorority and fraternity life? Fraternities and sororities have contributed to the fabric of the student experience at WashU since 1874, which is a fun fact. That was 98 years after the first fraternal society ever. Our first umbrella council in 1911, and in 1916, we saw the introduction of sororities. So as you can see, we have a long, rich history at WashU, developing leaders and impacting our community and beyond. To gain a better perspective on what type of impact we are talking about, I want to invite our soon-to-be graduate, Asia, to the conversation. Asia, how have you seen your experience unfold in your professional aspirations? And what skills do you believe you've gained as a result of your experience in your sorority?
Yes, so my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, is one of the Divine Nine or NPHC organizations, which are historically Black sororities and fraternities. And so being a part of any organization within the Divine Nine, but particularly my sorority, really connects you to a network of Black professionals, and especially with Delta. So I aspire to be a lawyer and kind of work in that like social action space, and that very heavily aligns with the foundation of my sorority. So for example, the mayor of St. Louis is a Delta. They're like Trayvon Martin's mom is a Delta. There's a lot of these people who occupy spaces of political action or social action, things like that. I am now connected to being a member of this sorority. And so I think that being put in a space where you can really network with people who are doing what it is that you want to do and are willing to go out of their way to make sure that you're succeeding. My advisor, for example, all the time asks me to send her my resume, and like she'll keep an eye out for internships or job openings since she knows that I'm about to graduate that she thinks that I would be good for. Having that support behind you is really important and really beneficial.
Thank you so much, Asia. As you're learning, our Sorority and Fraternity Life community is able to support your student, and more specifically in 5 different ways. And Asia was just able to talk about earlier service as the core of our impact and some of the social advocacy that she's interested in pursuing long-term and engaging in St. Louis community. And Ethan was able to talk about community through his experience with his brotherhood, some of the social experiences that have been happening. And we've just heard Lindsay talk about leadership skills and those experiences that she's been able to translate into her other aspirations and getting plugged into our community outside of sorority and fraternity life. In addition to these 3 areas of social experiences, our community offers your students the opportunity to have additional peer-to-peer support, an ecosystem of an academic-minded individuals. In addition, we want to let you know that as students participate in this experience, there are expectations that the community has that we'll be discussing further as it relates to community norms and expectations about financial commitments that our chapters will be able to talk through with your individual students as they participate in either intake or recruitment. Within our sorority and fraternity life history, we've seen many different changes. Most recently, with the unrest nationally this past year, it has created a tipping point for our own community to reflect about our relevancy at WashU. This included challenges ourselves to understand our systematic oppression that is a part of our history. This reflection included the choice for some of our members to either deactivate from their chapters or for those 962 members to remain. So currently we have around 14% of our community undergraduate students are affiliated to take on the work to reform in order to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive experience. When we think about our sorority and fraternity life community, we're going to talk a little bit more about the different chapters. We have a total of 29 different chapters that fall under 4 unique umbrella organizations. As our note, our National Panhellenic Council, which is our historically African-American chapters, offers some of our students a citywide chapter experience that Asia will be able to talk to you soon enough about this. So Asia, as a chapter president of a citywide chapter, can you just talk to us a little bit more about what that experience looks like and how you support your member experience at other institutions that are a part of your chapter?
Yes, definitely. So my chapter has 9 schools on its charter. So there are members in Alpha Omega, which is the chapter that I'm president of. do not just go to WashU. They also go to Harris Stowe, which is an HBCU in town. They go to like SLU, St. Louis University, UMSL, things like that. And so it's both challenging, but it's also very rewarding. Identifying the unique needs of each school has been something that not just myself, but my entire executive board team has really been working on this year. So for example, the needs of a school like WashU, which is a predominantly white institution, versus Harris Stowe, which is a historically Black institution, might be different in terms of educating people on what the Divine Nine is, what MPHC is. So that might mean we have to shift what programs we put on at those respective schools. Supporting students who are members in those in our chapter that go to different schools might look a little different. So for example, WashU is a research institution. So sometimes some of our members in the chapter who may be interested in gaining additional access to research, those of us who go to WashU might plug programs that people can apply to through WashU, things like that. So it's difficult because it requires a lot of coordination, but it's very rewarding because you get exposed to so many more people than you would if your network was restricted to just one campus. And also you get to see more of the city of St. Louis and, you know, the different people that are here.
Thank you, Asia. So this next slide highlights the chapters that are currently on our campus, and each chapter offers their own unique set of values, how they serve our community and how they build traditions within their community. So Ethan, as a president of Sigma Alpha Epsilon, can you share what traditions exist within our IFC chapters and our IFC council as a whole?
Yeah, so with IFC, I have to attend weekly meetings, but in general, between all the fraternities, we all like to help each other out. There's some friendly rivalries, but that's just friendly competition. We do things like having different like athletic leagues or something like that. I know we just played a flag football match, forget which fraternity it was against, but we won, so that's what's important. Community service and philanthropy is huge in supporting each other in that. And a lot of the time it's really fun events. So we all want to make sure that each chapter succeeds so that we can grow our community on campus and make sure that, you know, we're all in this together.
Thanks, Ethan. Here at WashU, our goal is to know every student by name and story, which allows us to have the opportunity to learn about experiences from folks within their sorority and fraternity chapters. It's cool to hear how traditions have evolved through the season of time. So when we're looking at this slide here, really it talks about what our community is present day and what our community is not. And what I can say our community is about is civic engagement. It's about networking, and it's about a values-based approach to leading others. So Lindsay, what are some ways that your chapter and or Women's Panhellenic provide sisterhood experiences? And this can be in the form of traditions, or it could be the use of your suite space.
Yeah, we have a pretty big variety of the ways that we kind of approach social and sisterhood events and activities on our campus. We do have a suite on campus that a lot of women have been able to use for either those sisterhood events or even just having a safe, comfortable space to go to on campus to study or spend time with others. So we have loved having a suite on campus. We have various activities throughout the semester that are typically planned by a committee. So we have different committees within our chapter to give women opportunities to get leadership opportunities and skills and get more involved in the community and things that interest them the most. So for instance, we have a committee dedicated to our sisterhood activities, so planning events to bring some girls together, another committee for philanthropy events and how we approach them, what organizations we're going to work with, and kind of what the logistics will look like for that. Another for our new member experience, so what within that new member phase before new members are initiated, what that consists of, the education, the meetings, and kind of getting that new pledge class close to one another. So we do have various committees that are involved in planning those sisterhood experiences. Some experiences that we've had in the past have included craft days, moving days, picnics in Forest Park, which are always really fun. We also pair women together who share academic and interests and majors so that they have opportunities to connect if they take similar classes and study rooms, and just support one another and learn from each other from different academic interests. And we also have sister events that are aligned with our goals with service, as we fundraise during the semester, both for an organization through our Kappa Gamma headquarters. So this semester was for an organization called Active Minds, which is our national philanthropy this semester, which was towards mental health awareness. And we also have events for our local St. Louis organization. So overall, we have various ways that different members can get involved and different experiences with sisterhood that we try to get girls throughout the year.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. What I hope you've been hearing about our experience is that there is positive correlation, both short-term and long-term. Now, a study was done a couple years ago about positive impact of our community, which you can see demonstrated with this slide around becoming involved, a sense of value, etc. Now, going back to Asia, can you talk about what positive effects you have seen with your chapter members during their membership?
Yeah, I'll speak for me personally, and then also brag about some of our members. But for me personally, I've definitely seen an increase in confidence, especially in stepping into my role as president, just having the confidence to lead my chapter in interacting with campus contacts at various universities and things like that. I think that it's definitely made me stronger. It's given me a greater sense of confidence, greater sense of organization, things like that. But to brag about my members, particularly Sydney, who was actually on a slide on your screen a few slides ago. She is one of my line sisters, so we came into our sorority together. But she has grown so much in my eyes since she has crossed into our sorority, and she's actually currently a candidate for national office within our sorority. And so we leave for convention this week, and she's running for national second vice president of the whole sorority, which is amazing to me. So I think that there's definitely a lot of personal growth that you experience within Greek life and within the Divine Nine.
Thank you so much, Asia. And that is so exciting for Sydney. I'm going to wish you all very much safe travels and a good luck for her. So academic is the foundation of WashU, which translates, it's the foundation of sorority and fraternity life. Our community is home to 82 unique primary majors that WashU has to offer, with finance, computer science, and political science being the top majors that are represented within the sorority and fraternity life community. So my question is now for Ethan: how does your respective chapter support your members academically to persist during that new member period?
Yeah, so we actually require that there are study hours that our new members have to complete. So that's within the house, or it's at designated study rooms that are open to all fraternity brothers, but it's required that new members, I think, get like 4 study hours a week in the eyes of other brothers. We also have a scholarship chair that makes sure that everybody is keeping their GPAs up. Nobody's really falling behind. And we really stress transparency. So if somebody feels like their grades are starting to take a dip, or things are starting to get too stressful, they're always welcome to come to me or come to their new member educators to talk about reeling in the process a little bit, or getting extra help to make sure that their grades are staying up.
So another point we wanted to share is that values are important to our community, and ensuring that our time, talent, and our treasure is congruent to them. So this year, the Sorority and Fraternity Life community will begin going through an accreditation program that highlights how each chapter is carrying out our Sorority and Fraternity Life values. So this slide helps you, this program should help you and your student learn more about our chapters, along with the support that is there for them from advisors to be able to mobilize support for their chapters as well. In addition to that, our national chapters hold our students accountable to their respective chapter standards as well. So Lindsay, could you talk to us a little bit about your chapter's values and how your sisterhood spends time living those out?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have various values that come from campus life and also what's typically seen as our core values through our national headquarters. And then we also depict some within ourselves and what is important to our individual members. So a main one that we've been focusing on this semester and going into the fall has been what our nationals calls trailblazing. Trailblazing is essentially an approach to introducing ideas and being creative and building our chapter through considering both the unique and collective experiences and personalities of all members in our chapter. So we focus on trusting one another and drawing from one another to overcome challenges that we see on our campus and within our organization. In doing so, we make also actionable steps to address such issues that we experience collectively and individually. Our goal in this is to constantly build our chapter and the experiences of each member in it by creating a support system for each woman, every woman in the chapter. We live this out in a few different ways, such as challenging some of the traditions in Greek life in order to make them more equitable and inclusionary for the members in the chapter and just in our broader community. For instance, we've changed our approach to, this might be unfamiliar to some people, but big little, so big sister, little sister pairings in a way that takes away the individual and group financial component of baskets that are typically given during that period and activities that people do typically in that period to make it more equitable and inclusionary. We also use this in approaching bringing in new members, so the recruitment piece of our chapter, our sisterhood and philanthropy events, and how we collaborate with other organizations on our campus and in communication with campus life and our headquarters to grow.
Thanks, Lindsay. Families, if you are interested in learning more about our demographic information, we encourage you again to look through the full report on our website. There is a QR code there on the slide, so you can do that if you are cool with the tech stuff and like doing that, but also the link to that can be provided in the chat for your convenience to be able to access as well.
Thank you, James. So as we're partnering, as you're partnering with your student and making this decision, we wanted to share with you some of the university requirements. Understanding we are still in that pandemic time, we acknowledge that our spring intake and recruitment process have not been finalized, but we are going to be able to share some of that information and some really great programs that are happening in December. So when we think about some of the eligibility requirements, the following are requirements from the university. Each of our chapters may have different minimum requirements that our interested students will learn during the intake and recruitment process. Now, something to note is the required 12 credits. We have something called deferred recruitment in order to support our students' academic experience, which means that our first year students, we want them, as Asia was talking about, a research-driven institution, high achieving students. We want them to get acclimated into their academics before they take on this lifetime commitment that they are engaging with. In addition to academics, we also look into the behavior of our potential new members. Again, with this being a lifetime commitment, we want to ensure our new members are congruent with their own values through their behavior and how they choose to demonstrate that. And that is reflective of the slides earlier on that talks about what some of those minimum standards are and some of the community norms. And so we want to make sure that we are looking at that at a case-by-case situation.
So next, we're going to just give you an overview of what spring 2021 will look like and just some general recruitment and intake tidbits. So if your student goes through the intake and recruitment processes, what we have here are just some terms that you may hear as they're talking to you about what they are going through during their experiences. And so this looks different from our culturally based groups to the IFC and Panhellenic groups. And so if you hear your student referring to themselves as a neophyte, they're probably taking part in a process for one of our cultural groups. That term then rolls over to a new member, or you may even hear pledge as you're talking to your student if they go through the IFC or Panhellenic experience. Intake is the term that refers to the recruitment process. Essentially, that is termed for IFC and Panhellenic. In our culturally based groups, they cross over, or they have a crossing with our IFC and Panhellenic groups. Initiation is used. Typically that initiation term can be used for both places, but crossing would be the term most likely that you would hear from your student if they're going to that cultural group experience. And then finally there, SANS is how the our folks in the cultural groups refer to their new member or their pledge class, which you may hear quite a bit if your student goes to the IFC or Panhellenic experience. So then there's also a couple of things that we would encourage you to talk with your students about if they decide to take part in this experience. And so here on this slide are some of the things that we will encourage students to do, and I think it would be great for you as families to be able to encourage your students to do that as well. And so on that note, Ethan, are there any pieces of advice that you would encourage our parents to share with their students, or our families to share with their students as they go through this experience?
Yeah, so I would just encourage all of your students to just go out there. We have 29 different organizations. There's going to be at least one for your child to succeed. All of them want to see your child thrive. And even if they're hesitant about it, just have them come to one of the recruitment days or intake days. When I was a senior in high school, if you had told me that in 4 years I was going to be president of a fraternity, I would have probably laughed in your face, because I did not think that I would ever join a fraternity. And then throughout freshman year, I had a few friends, and one of them was coming to Sigma Alpha Epsilon for the recruitment process, and I decided to join him just for the heck of it because I had nothing else going on that day. And now I'm here, and it was honestly the best decision I've made so far in my 3 years here, and has really made everything like fantastic for me.
Thank you so much, Ethan, for that those thoughts and thinking through this. Now, the following are recommended questions we encourage you to ask your student as they're making decisions to participate in sorority and fraternity life. Whereas this is not an exhaustive list, it does provide 2 questions per area of the all of those different areas of community and service and engaging in that type of an experience that we mentioned earlier. Now, I know some of you might be interested and probably questions are looming. We're almost done. James is going to talk a little bit more about some dates that are happening in December to circle around, as well as some of the information about recruitment as we are going into this next chapter.
Thanks, Beth. So on this slide here, you just see a recruitment intake overview. And so our United Greek Council will be holding a Meet the Greeks with the MPHC 101 on December the 5th. That'll be taking place from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the Danforth University Center, room 276. It'll have kind of an open house feel, just for prospective students to be able to come through and ask questions of our leaders within the Divine Nine and our Alpha organization, which is Alpha Psi Lambda. So they'll have an opportunity to ask questions about that before we go into the spring semester. As far as intake specifically, you would have to reach out to those groups individually. The students will have an opportunity to speak with students from those groups during that open house, but information will come out as groups are taking a line or taking new members in. Our Interfraternity Council will be holding open houses on Saturday, December the 4th from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Those will be taking place in Siegel Hall. And then their recruitment will be January 24th through February 5th. Information will be rolling out through social media and other avenues as we get closer to those dates as well. And then our Women's Panhellenic Association will be holding a Panhellenic Fair on December the 5th. Sunday, December the 5th from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. That'll be an Unwrapped Lounge on campus. And then recruitment will take place January 29th to 30th with open houses. And then February 4th through the 6th will be the formal recruitment process. And so those will be the dates that are coming. So circle those, tell your student about those if they don't know about them yet. Also, we have a QR code for you to be able to scan, and if your student is interested in the experience in any way, whether they're interested in our cultural groups, or they're interested in IFC or WPA, if you scan that QR code here, I believe the link will be provided in the chat as well. This just will be an interest form, and so your student will have an opportunity to maybe list organizations that they're already interested in, but then allows us to be able to get some of the information as far as eligibility and things like that are concerned. And so have them scan that and take a look at that. That will be helpful to everyone involved, as we can share that information with the chapters as well. So I think that is all the information that we have as a team. So I am going to toss it back over to our first year center team, and we will keep going from there.
Thank you all so much for sharing all of this insightful information. So we have a little bit of time to answer a few questions submitted from the audience and pre-submitted before this webinar. As a reminder, families, please submit your questions via the Q&A feature, and we will make sure that we address them either live on air or after this presentation. A first question that we have from a number of folks, both live as well as from pre-submitted questions: how many students participate in recruitment? And of those, how many are extended bids, especially around first-year students?
James, did you want me to answer that question? Okay. So I love this question because it's a data question. And historically, so as we've had a lot of different transitions that have happened in our community, our numbers have shifted. So of that 962 students, or 2 students that are representation of our Sorority and Fraternity Life community, 32%, or around 300, are new members that went through the spring semester. So we are in a state of transition and growth. I anticipate that we'll probably average around 300 to 500 students as a whole for all 29 chapters that are represented. When we think about that acceptance rate, it's really dependent on the chapter, it's dependent on the council, it's dependent on how many new members that they're able to take in. Some of our chapters, there's an expectation of only a certain amount because their national organization has said we only are able to extend a certain amount to allow for that growth to happen through all of our chapters with that under that particular council. So it is really dependent. I would say majority of those new members, that 32% or 300, are first year students. And I anticipate those numbers to be about the same. Around 300 to 500 students, first year students, will participate and go through this process and find a match. The other question you have to ask yourself when asking that is if a person is only going to one chapter or they're maximizing their options. We have chapters that identify with a women's organization, a men's organization, and we have a co-ed organization experience. So depending on how they maximize those experiences also depends on whether they're going to participate.
We have a number of families who have written to us. My student has told me about the abolished Greek life movement on campus. Will the university be making any changes to sorority and fraternity life in the near future? How does sorority and fraternity life address this with their students who are thinking about engaging with this community?
Sure, I can take that. So I think there's been a lot of things moving and in progress, and a lot of difficult conversations that have happened over the last, I guess, year and a half that this has been happening, but year or so that I've been exposed to it as a professional. And so I think what we're asking for from a lot of students is, we know there's a lot of work that we need to do. I think the students who've stayed in the community know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think there's a lot of students in the community who are asking their peers to be accountable and do better as far as those issues and concerns that have been raised by abolished Greek life. When it comes to recruitment, we've tried to really work with our councils on making access look different than it has in the past. We're trying to be more transparent with what we're doing and what we're providing for our students. And so our accreditation program that we've developed is one of those opportunities for us to show the work of what's actually being done in the community, and knowing that there is a valuable space for this experience, not only in the experience of our students, but on this campus. And so there have been many smaller things that we're hoping to be able to overcome and do and meet the larger challenges of what that presents. And so if your student is interested in this experience, I would just hope that they are interested in being a part of the change and leading this community in the correct direction, because a lot of those issues and concerns have been heard and are being addressed, and the values of our community, I think, will win out in the end. And we're hoping to make sure that every decision and every process, everything that we do aligns with those, to be able to address the concerns of the Abolished Greek Life movement.
I just want to add into this. Thank you, James, for that. I have been working in campus life since 2018. And during that process, I started out with working with all of our 450 student groups. So some of the questions that our sorority and fraternity life present day are getting asked about financial barriers, access, all of these wonderful questions. Our student groups as a whole were getting having those questions. Even our governing body, student union, was answering some of those questions internally within their own operational tool. So what's interesting about the climate of today and our students coming in, our Ethans and Lindsays and Asias of the world, is we're being reflective about organizational construct and does it make sense of the season of today? And that's a great question that we have to wrestle with to be relevant, to be current, to be activists within our own way and perspective. And so our community, since even before 2018, but I can only speak to when I was there, have been wrestling with that conversation and leading up to today. And that's what's really amazing, is the leaders today that you've been able to hear have been addressing that. So as some of you might be questioning, do we need to come in earlier to start up the spring semester? The answer is no, because we don't want to have that financial burden on those students that want to engage in this opportunity. And so each of our councils have been addressing reform efforts in a unique way. I'm going to offer, if Ethan or Lindsay or Asia, because I know you've all been really doing great work, wanted to mention some of the work you're doing. I know, Lindsay, you've been able to do a lot within your own chapter and within the council. So just didn't know if any other folks wanted to offer up their thoughts in real time, since we have students here to talk about it.
Yeah, I can jump in. I would say in particular about some of the questions about abolished Greek life, I think it's really important. I think it's a dynamic conversation. I think it's caused a lot of internal reflection and a lot of conversations within our chapter, because we used to just appoint a point person for diversity, equitability, and inclusion. And we used to just approach one chairman for that, which is a very flawed system. So now we assume and we hope, and we only bring in members and committee members that are all implementing DEI in everything they do. As a president, I should be implementing it in our recruitment, in our sisterhood events, and our philanthropy events. That should not just be on one person. That is something that should be prevalent among our entire community. So in that sense, I think anything that we do and anything we roll out as a chapter, those conversations about, is this inclusive, equitable, and improving our system fundamentally moving forward, those are all fundamental questions that we should be asking ourselves moving forward. So I think I mentioned, we've been challenging our headquarters pretty seriously and working with them collaboratively to have conversations about traditions and rituals that we don't think are necessary for our chapter, which might be done pretty commonly in others, but we might not think that that's necessarily bringing the girls together or promoting our values. So we've been challenging them. We've also been working very closely with other organizations and campus life to make sure that what we are rolling out, the topics of our chapter meetings, the sisterhood events that we're having, are aligned with our DEI values and our values as a whole. So in that sense, I hope that answered some questions, that it's definitely prevalent, but in a way that we're trying to implement and bring that into our community rather than ignore it.
Thank you, Lindsay. One more thing before I give Reggie to the other question is, Lindsay mentioned our national support team. Our students have been doing an amazing job, not only advocating at a local level, but at a national level, and making those different changes to see that impact from a national movement, which is really exciting to be on that that end. In addition to that, we did have a co-curricular advisory board that was put together last year to address some of the systemic issues that were happening, not only within Sorority and Fraternity Life, but our co-curricular community. I welcome you to look at the Campus Connection Campus Life website, where it addresses some of the areas that our community said we want to do better at and where we want to see grow, and some of the action items that the university has been taking to ensure that we have a more equitable co-curricular community. So I would encourage you to look at that. I will assume that our first year center will send that through the Q&A or the chat feature, but wanted to add that into that. Thank you, Reggie.
Families, we hope you were able to learn some valuable information this evening. I recognize that we are a little bit past time and we apologize for that, but we know that tonight we hope you were able to learn a lot of valuable information. Panelists, thank you so much again for taking the time to share your experiences, to share your work within this community. Families, as a reminder, this webinar recording will be shared at families.wustl.edu next week. So please stay tuned for our next webinar, a conversation with the Career Center, occurring on Wednesday, December 1st at 5:30 p.m. You'll be able to register for this webinar at families.wustl.edu. We'll see you then. Thank you.